Good evening. I'd like to call the City Council meeting to order. Would the clerk please do the roll call?
Council members Hannah. Here. Grunmeyer. Here. Bash. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman. Yes. Mayor Newton.
Here.
All present. Thank
you, Cheryl. We will now recess to closed session. Good evening. I'd like to reconvene the public session, and we will have a report of actions taken in closed session by the city attorney.
Yes, the City Council considered in closed session the matters which are listed on the agenda, which are for potential litigation matters, and there's no reportable action.
Thank you, John. If you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Grunmeyer, and then remain standing for the invocation by Pastor Irwin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here to lead us in prayer. Lord, I just want to thank you. God, I want to thank you for everything that you're doing in Norco. I thank you for every person that comes together to make our city great. Lord, I pray that everything that needs to be worked out and decided upon, every financial need of this city, Lord God, will be met. I pray that every family would experience life and they would experience it in abundance, God. So, Lord, I thank you for everyone represented here. I pray that their families, their homes, their businesses would be blessed because you are a God that loves your people. So thank you for this time together, God. Thank you for everything you're doing in Norco. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. So now I have a plaque, and I'm going to ask Scott from EDAC to join me out front, and my friend Bill Schwab.
Pretty good.
Bill, step around here. Much as we appreciate everything that you have done for us and continue to do, I'd like to just present this plaque to you in appreciation for your service and dedication to the City of Norco on our Economic Development Advisory Council. And you had served from June 2002 until June 2017. And just certainly appreciate all your service.
It's my pleasure, Seth.
Say a couple things too. Yes, Bill, on behalf of Brad, myself, and the rest of the EDAC Council, we truly appreciate all your contributions that you've made to that council. I know that you were there from its conception practically, when it was known as the Breakfast Club, which they made a movie thereafter of. And to this day, you've made a big contribution. You were there all the time. You gave a lot of thought and wisdom to the council when projecting ideas of things that could help the city with the economic development. And your contributions were greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
And Bill, before you go away, because you're not going away, you're still on our Veterans Committee. So do you have anything to say? Speech. You don't have to.
Yes, he does. So I got a cane. I'll hit him over the head if he doesn't.
Well, I saw a lot of folks come and go during that period of time. We ended up with a really good economic development consultant. And I think that, that whole council is nothing but volunteers. And I think we've got 2 great volunteers that have just come in, which are new. And I think that's going to be a real boon to the Economic Development Council. I know that there's not, I'm preaching to the choir here, but, volunteerism is down, and it would really be nice if we had more people giving back. And that's exactly what my wife and I have planned to do, or we were blessed, and we've enjoyed giving back. And thank you for this. I really didn't, you didn't have to do this. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to City Council business, communications, reports on regional boards and commissions. Berwin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's see, RCTC acquired the funding last week for the financing of the 15 freeway expansion. So that was good news. And RTA, our buses, we already have a bus terminal in Hemet where they store the buses and the drivers all meet to take off, but now they're working on a deal to with the city of Hemet to purchase this old building in downtown Hemet beside the railroad track to make a transportation hub out of it where the buses can all come in there, and eventually they'll be the train no longer runs through there, but they're planning on expanding that Paris Valley line from Paris down through Hemet, San Jacinto, so we'll see how that goes. And the Friday after the last council meeting, I attended an active shooter training as an observer that the Sheriff's Department puts on. That's the second one I've been to. They did them both at Roosevelt High School, so I was there with Lieutenant Briddick and Captain Hedge and a bunch of officers and everything, and it's quite a deal to observe that because these officers we have, these deputies, are so well trained, it's unreal, and they go through a scenario where there's somebody in a schoolroom shooting or stabbing people, and they go in and take control of it. And I'll tell you, they're all expert marksmen, so it's quite a pleasure to get to go see some of that. And then on this past Monday, excuse me, myself and Mayor Pro Tem Ted Hoffman, we drove out to Indio to watch the dedication of the new John Benoit detention center. They're building a new jail there in Indio, and I'll let Ted tell you more about it. But John Benoit passed away just this last January, I believe it was. He was a supervisor for the 4th District, and he was a former law enforcement officer. I think he was a CHP for 30-something years, then he was a senator or assemblyman. But it was quite a deal, and John did a lot of good for the county, so we went out there to support the Sheriff's Department and the Benoit family. But Ted can tell you more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Berwin. Robin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this last week, I was able to spend some time in the planning department observing what goes on in the planning department, talk to some members of staff just to get a better idea of city operations in that particular department as my schedule's a little bit more flexible over the summer. And then I've also been able to spend a block of time at CAL FIRE, seeing what they do for the day. And unfortunately, the day I was there, we didn't get any calls for service. So the guys felt bad for me and at least took me for a ride in the fire truck, which was fun. So thank you to CAL FIRE for doing that. I appreciate that. But I am looking forward to trying to get around to all the departments and spend time seeing what they do and really getting to understand their day-to-day operations. So I'd like to say thank you to staff that have hosted me during this summer, and I'll try and get around to everybody else at various times during the year while I have breaks. So thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Ted?
Well, as Berwin said, we went to Indio on Monday and enjoyed the beautiful 100-degree plus heat. Now, it was, for those who don't know, the Riverside County, one of its duties is to maintain a jail. And we say, well, what's Indio helps Norco out? The jail system in the county, they share bed space throughout the county. So if our jail here in Riverside, the Robert Presley Detention Center is full, as people start moving over to the Indio Jail or the Southwest Jail or Banning. So everything that the county does to build these facilities impacts us. And yes, it does impact the county budget too, and it's very expensive. But Berwin and I were very grateful that we got a chance to sign the top beam on the topping of it. And so who knows if you ever go up there in 20 years and look and see the big white beam up in the center there, you can look for our names on there. So, but that was good. Anyway, of course, went Thursday night, went to the Norco Area Chamber of Commerce. Very interesting. And I know Mrs. G, as their FFA kids, did an excellent job, by the way, helping serve. But I'm very proud of the recipients of the awards for this year and the installation of their new president. Along with that, I went to LAFCO meeting on that Thursday. I was basically looking to see what the county, what LAFCO is going to do with the county islands, the unincorporated areas that are next to or surround city areas. They're having their ad hoc committee meeting sometime mid-August, hopefully by August 14th, according to George, but haven't heard anything more yet. Major meeting went to was the RICWA meeting on July 27th, and Chad will probably be presenting to us here in the next couple of weeks the proposal to see us give them more money. You know what, and I'm going to step on my soapbox here. I had to chastise those guys. And Greg, you know what I'm talking about. These guys love to spend money. And I had to remind them where that money was coming from. It's not just like the RICWA is made up of Home Gardens, Water District, the Harupa Community Service District, the City of Corona, and us. And maybe for the Community Service District and Home Gardens, it's easy to raise the rates. But for the City of Corona and the City of Norco, we planned this all out. So I had to remind them that there comes a limit. And they're increasing the limit of that. They're just slightly over the budget of what they have proposed. But it's one of those things that hopefully they got messages that the stuff has got, you just can't keep asking. They have to work within their budgets. With that, I'll look forward in mid-August, next meeting, or September when we see that. Yeah. Not that I'm going to like to prove it. I know we have to. That's the sad part about it. Also, I don't know if Andy or Kevin's going to talk about it. Went to the Navy State of the Command. Very interesting. Councilman Grummeyer, City Manager Coral, and Councilman Bash with us. I found it very interesting, very informative what they actually do over there. Very impressed with it. I know it was a song and dance and for the Navy over there, but still, if you look at what they've done over there, and I remember when it was when FIMSAG was over there and growing up here as a kid and seeing friends of mine, their parents worked there. I'm impressed. A lot of changes. Impressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Kevin?
I too went to the Navy meeting today, and it's always fun to go there. What's really nice is we really have had an impact as a city. Andy can tell you, going back when they were going to not quite do the historic preservation on some of the old buildings, we've saved a lot of the looks of the buildings, so that's really nice. And it's very nice to see the history you've given the Navy up on a board inside the J wall, and that was pretty impressive. So it wasn't too long ago when they said none of that happened, so it was real nice. And the job they're doing on the old Norconian garage is fantastic. It's perfect. Went to the Senior Star meeting today. Again, kudos to the staff for what they do for seniors. It's just amazing. There's so many field trips. Is there some way we can get those field trips online? I went online. If we could somehow make them sendable, because we're just not up to date on that stuff. And if we could do that, that would be really, really good. In the historic preservation end of it, as you know, we're not quite sure what the date is yet, but before we go to the Historic Commission, but I've been on the phone the last couple of days, and so far we have letters of recommendation coming from the National Navy Historic Society, which is huge, the California Preservation Foundation, which is huge, the Los Angeles Historic Project, the National Wheelchair Basketball Association, the Society of Navy Medicine. We've got right now over 30 letters from major historians coming from all over the nation to support putting that on the National Register. It's pretty cool, all that stuff that's happening. I went to the Sheriff's 20th cadet graduation. I was really, really proud. Captain Horton, our former captain, gave a great speech, and I got to see Dan Hedges. And, when you see those kids march in there and get their pins and then sit up on that stage, you think to yourself, wow, there is hope for the future. Very, very impressive kids. I also went to the Chamber of Commerce meeting. Ted's already touched on that. I attended the last part of the Riverside High Tension meeting at Urupa Valley. The opposition to these high tension wires is growing. I'm not really sure why Riverside keeps trying to push it forward, but they do. And then just on a different note, not really council business, I had the opportunity to attend the commissioning of the Rafael Peralta, which is a destroyer, brand new destroyer. And it was very cool to walk around that boat and see NAVSEA Corona all over it, little stickers everywhere you went. And when you looked at all the missile chutes, you saw stickers, and there were quite a few people from our base that were there, so that was a lot of fun. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kevin. A ship. I too attended the Chamber of Commerce dinner, and I'd like to say I like the direction that the Chamber seems to be going in a very positive direction now, so that was good to see. And then last night, I attended along with Commissioner Jeff Cahan at Riley Gym, the basketball awards. And at the end of the night, I would say there was at least 100 kids, 150 kids, and we sat and shook hands with every one of them in a 120-degree sauna. So now that I see you, Hank, we need to get the swamp coolers fixed. Okay. So find that money. But it was a good attendance for that, so it was really good to see, and that's always a lot of fun. And then just a reminder, this Friday is our concerts in the parks, and our surprise MC will be Jeff Cahan to get back at him. And then I'm sure Jeff will talk a little bit about it later. So that's all I have right now that I can recall. Absolutely.
One of the things that he kind of touched on is the fact that we don't have volunteers. This Saturday night, don't you guys have your Rotary Bingo? This Saturday night, American Legion Hall, Rotary Bingo. Support the Rotary does so many things that people don't know about, and they're like the Kiwanis and some of the others. They've got, 15, 20 members that work their rear ends off. So if you guys have a chance, come on down and have some fun. I think there's food too, right? Yep, there you go. Gave you a plug.
Thank you. We'll move into City Council consent items. I'm going to ask to pull item D. Anything else? Entertain a motion to approve. the rest? Cheryl?
Councilmembers Hannah? Grunmeyer?
Yes.
Bash? Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So, do you want to talk first, or should I just ask why, or let you know why I pulled it? So, in front of everyone, you can see a picture of some signalization with a yellow outline on the backboard of it, and I had seen this in Riverside off of Van Buren the other day, and it just kind of like jumped out at me. And I thought, you know, with these different areas of signalization, one of the most dangerous ones we have is Hamner and Fifth, also because we have the diagonal equestrian crossing there. So I wanted to try to float maybe a test balloon and ask if council had any comments on this. Chad will explain the cost and any logistics with it, but I just kind of want to see what council felt with it before I asked that it have Streets and Trails look at it. And Chad, if you want to add anything to that?
So we did a little investigation with our contractor, which is Siemens, which is who we're authorizing on this project. This is actually reflective tape. As far as understanding, it's not actually pre-manufactured backboards to the signal heads. So it's something that Riverside has done. We haven't talked with them directly about why they chose to do it or et cetera. They've done it in selective intersections in their city. And this is one of those intersections I took a picture of. So they could do it if council wants us to do it. They've given an estimate of anywhere between, and they threw it together quickly today, of $150 to $200 per signal head, because you're renting the person, the equipment, the bucket truck, and they literally are going to stand there and just try to get the tape on there perfectly. It's just a question of how you want to implement it. If it's something you want to do as far as in a test area, where you'd like to do it in a test area, to see if there's any noticeable difference or comment from the public or, you know, perception. I don't know if it's meant to change anything related to accidents, et cetera. If it's just meant to pop out more of the signal itself, seeing it. I had a longer version that kind of shows you how it looks, you know, from a distance, but that's basically what folks see. And as far as unfortunately, I don't have a comparison one to a normal intersection, but this is something the mayor had asked me to get a couple photos of and some costs on, and so the council could maybe discuss it and talk about it.
Go ahead, Ted.
Mayor, I was going to pull this one anyway for some other reasons, but reference yellow tape, is that DOT approved?
I'd have to verify. Yeah, again, we just kind of threw this together. I would imagine Riverside's not doing anything in contrast to DOT, but I would have to verify.
Just asking.
But we'd have to verify.
Yeah, because if it's not anything, I mean, I understand it makes it stick out. I mean, it's true, but I would want to make sure that if we're going to do it, we do something like that, it's DOT approved.
I'd venture that it's probably is, because currently a lot of the backboards on many of the signs is either yellow, and now it's even actually green on school zones. So okay. I think the backing wouldn't be the issue.
All right.
But we'll verify if we ever do anything regarding this.
Okay, a little something further, and this is something that I know the city manager and I talked about. Explain to me, or maybe explain to the audience out there, on that Fifth and Hamner, our potential of $35,000 to increase that, so we have a protected lane going east and west for that traffic. And yes, I use that intersection. Yes, it is needed. But we're also later on tonight going to look at this hotel with the improvements at 5th Street that have to be done. Would this wouldn't be anything that the hotel would be responsible for if they approve it, but if we do it now, they would have to incorporate that in when they improve that intersection.
No, this would not have anything to do, what we're asking to do tonight has to do with anything with the hotel improvements. The hotel at most, all they're going to have to do is move the mast arm and pole itself to the proper location when they widen the road. Changing the signal heads themselves to go from a passive left turn to a protected left turn is entirely a decision that we're making for safety purposes to move forward. It's not a condition of them developing the project. They're simply going to move the existing pole that's on that corner to the proper location. That's all they're being required to do.
Okay, so I guess my question is we're spending $35,000 now for that intersection. This wouldn't be anything that the hotel would be obligated later on, other than just to move the pole.
No.
And that's what I wanted to bring up, is so that, why should we pay money when that intersection is going to be rehabbed anyway?
Correct.
For them? So this would be totally different. This is a new control box that would also go in?
Correct.
So that would be totally okay. I just want to people understand why we're spending this kind of money, and when less than 18 months and 2 years, the hotel's going to, if this hotel passes it, they're going to be doing the same thing. All right, thank you.
I somewhat had that same question on that agenda item, knowing that they're going to be conditioned for traffic improvements. But I think the time frames are going to be too far spread apart to look for any efficiency in doing everything at the same time. Kevin, do you have any feedback on maybe sending that to Streets and Trails and get their opinion on it? Pro, con?
I kind of like how it sort of shoots out. But I'm like him, I'm wondering if it's permitted. I'm assuming it would be because the city of Riverside's doing it. But it sounds funny. Even though it pops out, to me it looks kind of pretty. I mean, it looks kind of nice.
It gets your attention when you see it in...
And I wonder if maybe because more and more what I notice people doing is that they're just shooting through, running more and more red lights. And I wonder if this maybe makes you stop. I don't know. But I think it looks kind of cool. Adds some color.
Robin?
I do like the yellow tape on there. I drove through that area a couple weeks ago, and it does catch your attention as somebody that's driven through that area several times before the tape was done, and then after the tape's done, it definitely catches your eye as you're going through the area. So I would be interested in having the committee go through and see if that's something we want to do, especially with, the relatively low cost of doing something like that. I think that would be advantageous. And then on another note, thank you for getting around and putting 5th and Hamner on the list for that improvement for the protected left. I know that was an issue right when I first got elected within the first month, so I'm happy to see that being checked off the list, so to speak. So thank you.
Just a question, is 150 per light?
Signal head, yeah.
Per signal head. So if you have 3, that's 300, 400, 450 bucks.
And that signal head right there has 4. Actually, just one's cut off. Again, that's in Riverside. That's not us, so.
Got it.
But again, we can do it. One of the things we'll look at and we'll talk with the STUC committee about is, again, I would be more concerned with the long-term maintenance of something like that when it's tape. Tape tends, especially with the heat in our area, tape tends to not stay very long, and we'd want to make sure that what we do, so we might look at more of a permanent, if somebody desired maybe a different backboard that was manufactured that way into the material, and it would last longer and not peel back, and we're out there trying to fix tape and et cetera. So those are the things I want to make sure that whenever we do go forward with that, we can certainly do a test one and test out and see if it's just likable, and if we were going to go full scale throughout the city, that we would probably try to find the best mechanism so it lasts the longest.
Berwin?
Yeah, excuse me, I think it's pretty catchy. I think you can see it pretty good. I think you probably see it better at night than what you do now, but I think it would be worth letting Streets and Trails look at it, plus look at all the issues that Chad just brought up when they make the study, because he brought up some good points, not only the heat, but the severe winds we get here 3 or 4 times a year might play havoc on that tape. So I think it'd be a good idea to let Streets and Trails look at it.
Good. Eric, do you have any feedback on these familiar with it at all?
Good evening. No, I'm not familiar with them. This is obviously more of an engineering issue in terms of, as opposed to law enforcement. And I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on this, Chad. Was this specifically to grab attention? Was that the purpose of this, or is there another underlying purpose?
I don't know. I have not been able to get contact with Riverside yet to find out what their motivation was to undertake this project.
That would be my question. What is the intended purpose of this, or is it something else outside of what we're looking at tonight?
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
Mayor,
motion to go ahead and then.
One of the things, and if you get a chance to talk to Riverside on this, why they did that, and see if they didn't do it at selected intersections where they've had problems. But I can see where if we try to do this throughout the town, that it becomes a moot point. It's not an eye catcher. It doesn't catch your eye. It doesn't contrast very well. You know, it becomes the norm. Where if you have selected intersections that are like Fifth and Hamner that need that, or even like 6th in California where you need that type of grabbing effect, that would be more of a attention getter. Just an idea.
Yep, we'll ask those questions.
Thank you. With that, Mayor, I'll move to approve.
Cheryl?
Councilmembers Hannah, Grunmeyer, Bash, Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman, Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Move into public comments. Cheryl, any cards?
Justin DeWale from Assemblymember Cervantes' office.
Good evening, Justin.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thanks for letting me speak tonight. So the Assembly member, I'm from Assembly Member Cervantes' office. For those who don't know, the Assembly member is on summer recess until August 21st, at which time she will return to Sacramento with 400 to 500 bills to look at before end of year recess. But in the meantime, we're hosting a few district events over the next couple of weeks. So we are co-sponsoring a special needs games day next Saturday, August 12th. That's going to be with the Eastvale Cub Scouts in Hirata Park in Eastvale. That's going to be 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And special needs children and their families will get in for free. There will be games, food, so do come out. August 17th, we are going to have an open house at our new office, which we just moved to yesterday. That's at 391 North Main Street in Corona. So it's going to be an open house. The Assembly member will be there, and it will also be a backpack giveaway. So that's the 17th from 5 to 7 p.m. And on the 18th, we are hosting another Senior Scam Stopper in Corona at the public library on Main Street. And that is 2 to 4 p.m. So do come out to that as well. And, sorry? The Corona Public Library on Main Street on the 18th. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Jeff Kahan.
Good evening, Jeff.
Just as a quick thing on Justin, they moved into 391 North Main Street, Suite 210. My office is 391 North Main Street, Suite 303. So I'm just right up the stairs. I came by today and you were at the Navy base. So I'm really up here just to, as you mentioned earlier, we do have a concert in the park this Friday. It'll be a trio called The Heart of Leo, kind of a 60s instrumental throwback, kind of like the Mamas and the Papas. It should be a great night of music. We also then have our last concert back-to-back Fridays. This is the one time where there's no week in between. So our final concert will be on the 11th with a band called Escape. It's our Journey tribute band. And once again, I would be remiss if I didn't thank our sponsors, because our concerts in the park are done through donations of businesses. These wonderful businesses around Norco and even outside of Norco help us to put these on. So I just want to be able to thank Himborg Ford and Browning Dodge, two of our big sponsors also of our Christmas parade. The Norco Lions Club is always there They collect money for selling food, but they turn around and give that money back to sponsor the next summer. So they're a wonderful partner. County Supervisor Tavaloni, Air Temp Incorporated, My Gym Norco, the Norco Mounted Posse is always there volunteering their time for security. AYSO Region 37, Waste Management, Norco Horsemen's Association, and Rural, thank you for your support. Polly's Pies, Bobby Mendoza's Sound, and of course, I had lunch there today, Ancho's Southwest Bar and Grill. We have some wonderful sponsors. I want to thank them publicly. We announce them every week, but it's truly because they help make it possible. So please come out, enjoy. If the weather cooperates, I think by Friday this monsoon stuff will be over, so we should have a great evening of concerts for the next couple of Fridays. So thank you for your support, and yes, I will be there to MC for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, citizens on patrol, Eric, do a great job at the concerts. Cheryl?
Bonnie Slager.
Good evening, Bonnie.
Hi, I'm just here to remind everybody it's time to buy your fare buttons. The fare's going to be here before you know it. You buy them ahead of time, they're only $10 a piece. If you buy them at the fair, you got to pay $15. So they're available here at City Hall, and they're available at a lot of the businesses on 6th Street and along Hamner. So get your fare buttons. Thanks.
Thank you.
That concludes public comments.
Thank you, Cheryl. We'll move into legislative matters. Ordinance number 1024, second reading. I'll entertain a motion.
Councilmembers Hannah.
Yes.
Grunmeyer.
Yes.
Bash.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman.
Yes.
Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 6A is a continued public hearing. This is approval of an economic development subsidy report. And Roger, do you start this?
I do, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, members of the council. This is the first of two items regarding the proposed Holiday Inn Express Hotel at the southeast corner of Hamner and 5th. This public hearing required by statute is commonly referred to as an AB 562 hearing. It's required anytime a jurisdiction provides a subsidy or economic development incentive of more than $100,000 or more. In this particular case, the city is proposing first to waive $446,000 of development impact fees, and second, enter into a TOT, or transient occupancy tax sharing agreement, with a developer. The AB 562 report is designed to resolve a rather simple question, and that is, does the benefit to the public outweigh the cost of the incentive? Or if you view it as a scale, whose interest is given more weight, the public's or the developer's? For this particular project, the answer is most definitely the public's. The sharing of the TOT is temporary, and over the long term, this project will generate revenues far in excess of the incentives being provided. After no more than 6 years, and more likely, given the economy and occupancy rates in Norco, 4 to 5 years, the sharing agreement will conclude, and thereafter, the city will retain 100% of TOT every year. And even during the sharing period, the city will be receiving its 50%, calculated very conservatively at $140,000 a year. The primary benefits to the public, which are enumerated in the report and gone into in a little bit more detail, are number one, job creation, both the temporary construction jobs that we'll see as well as permanent jobs at the hotel. All of these, in turn, stimulate sales tax generation in Norco. Secondly, increased property taxes. Number three, transforming a vacant piece of land, arguably a blighted piece of land, an eyesore, into a revenue-generating property. And while doing so, accommodating intense demand for new hotel rooms in Norco, generated largely by Silver Lakes. people visiting Norco should be able to stay in Norco. And then lastly, this incentive ultimately creates a maximization of the use of the site. This project, if it does not move forward, would leave us with a vacant site, arguably a blighted site for months, maybe years. More likely, it would become the site of a fast food establishment or a gas station, either one of which would generate a fraction of the revenue that this proposed hotel would. For these reasons, which are presented in the AB 562 report, this transaction represents, we believe, a distinct benefit to the community. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Roger. What's the current zoning on that corner? CG?
Yep, CG.
Thank you, Steve. Kevin, any questions to staff? Ted?
Thank you. Roger, I know where you referred to AB 562. Prior to Governor Brown killing the RDA program where cities had the ability to entice hotel operations and businesses from building there, what other avenues do we have right now in the city other than to make agreements like this that we're doing? Are there any other alternative ways?
I would say no. Prior to 2012, when we had a redevelopment agency, we'd probably be making similar concessions to the developer. It would be done with less transparency and without the opportunity for the public to be as involved. Without a redevelopment agency in this new era, we have to stay competitive. Our development impact fees are relatively high, and if we don't provide an incentive to this developer, he could slip across the city line into Eastvale, and they would be receiving the TOT instead of Norco. There is also some urgency here in terms of aggressively pursuing hotels, and it explains our almost obsession with marketing the city to hotels. We have tremendous demand for hotel rooms, but the hotel industry is very cyclical, and we're now reaching a point, according to financial analysts, we're probably we're in the seventh year of kind of a very bull market for hotel development, which is starting to wane. And when we went to ICSC, a lot of the hotel companies told us that lending is actually beginning to slow. So this is our window of opportunity. We really can absorb probably 4 hotels like this quite easily. They would all be, have high occupancy rates like the Fairfield does and like the Holiday Inn Express would. So we really have to make these efforts. It's a long way of answering a short question, but to your point, there is no other alternative.
And what if, so 6 years is a good, we're talking about here, this adjustment, it should be maximum 6 years.
It ends at the end of 6 years. It's more likely to end at, given the demand for hotel rooms here in the city, it's more likely to end after 4.5 or 5 years.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Robin? Questions? Berwin?
I don't have any question right now, but I got a comment I'd like to make, and I'm not being harsh on staff or anything, but I noticed, I wish when we did these staff reports on these hotels and whatever businesses we're going to bring in, that we don't just lay it all on to Silver Lakes, although I know that brings in a lot of money, but we have a lady on our staff that works very hard to bring in a lot of events up at George Ingalls Equestrian Center, and those people that come here for the dogs, horses, whatever they come for, they do stay in our hotels and eat in our restaurants. So I wish when we do these staff reports, we wouldn't just put one business down, that we'd include George Ingalls, because that was here first, and this is Horsetown, USA, so I'd appreciate seeing that in the staff reports. Thank you.
Well, I would like to respond to that. I appreciate you pointing that out, and that truly is an oversight in this case. We work very closely with Patty Ireland, who is doing a great job in diversifying the events at Ingalls, and we are receiving more and more of these multi-day events where people do stay overnight in Norco, and we've even worked with her to calculate the economic impact of those events at Ingalls, and they're substantial. And once people start staying in the hotels, that impact just multiplies. So your point is very well taken, and I thank you for it.
This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing.
No cards on this item.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for any discussion and action. Kevin?
I just have a couple comments, very, very brief. In the early 2000s, we missed this opportunity, as Berwin will tell you. I won't mention the quote that became so famous.
I remember that.
Blank, 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 truck drivers. But we had the opportunity to bring in 2 hotels, and we did not do it, and that was to our detriment. This is, your circles, Robin, are infecting me, I'm afraid. But what we're looking at here is, even though it's going to cost us money to bring them in, we're looking at long-term solvency for a way of life. This is something that's going to pay off now, then more down the line. And I made the note too, Silver Lakes and Ingalls Park. Ingalls Park, as the equestrian facilities hopefully get built at Silver Lakes, will do nothing but work in tandem, and so I think that'll be a huge attraction. I'm really hoping that we go forward with this. I'm very excited by it, because when we did go to ICSC, this is what we went after, were hotels, and I'm hoping we get 3 more that come down the pike here in a very short amount of time. And I do agree with the urgency. I think that we need to move on this, because one of the things we're trying to beat is other communities that are desperately also looking for hotels. Hotels are the holy grail in terms of people building financial solvency within their communities. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Ted?
I kind of agree with Kevin on this one. I went to ICSC. The project is that, the hotels, what we were trying to do, and this is a good fit. And one of the things with good hotels is eventually we will get good eateries to come into town. They don't put restaurants and hotels anymore in some of these places. They don't want to mess with it. So with that, maybe the eateries good eateries or chains will come into town. That's hopefully our goal, as Roger and his team is looking at. Besides the Silver Lakes and Ingalls Park bringing people in, interesting from the Navy today, and I didn't realize it, 1,600 is what he said?
5,000 a week.
Visitors a week coming to town. And that's amazing when you start thinking about the number of visitors. Now, do they all stay in our local hotels? Some of them do. And the more we have, the more we're going to get it. Unfortunately, if they're a federal employee, we don't get any because they don't pay TOT. But I'm sure that some of the other ones are going to spend money in town. And especially if we have the hotels, they'll stay in town. So they'll shop at the restaurants. So I'm all in favor of this project and what you've done, Roger, on this 562 project.
Robin?
Thank you. I am also in favor of the incentive program. As somebody that's tried to have hotel accommodations for multiple day events just for like the Ag Teachers Association, it is difficult even in the middle of the week to get hotel rooms for groups of people in town. So there's a definite need for that. And, having some money coming in is better than having zero money coming in. And so the incentive agreement, I think, is easily justifiable by the income that would be generated from a piece of property that right now is generating $0. So thank you for your work on it.
Thank you, Robin. Berwin?
Yeah, I too agree with this, and I agree with Roger about this as an urgency, because I can remember several years ago when you couldn't get a hotel to think about coming here, not only because there wasn't anything for them to attract them, but because of the financing that they have to come with it. The financing does only last for a few years before they slow down and quit trying to build. But also on the note that Ted brought up about the Navy, the manager told me last year down at the Fairfield that they have a tremendous amount of, they rent a tremendous amount of rooms during the week to the visitors to the Navy. Even the Admiral, when he comes here, he stays there. And I think that the way it's worked out with the location of all these hotels by the 6th Street on and off ramp, I think that's great because they're visible from the freeway and people can see them in advance in time to get off and come in, and that's a lot better than having to drive over into Riverside or Corona or turn around and go back to Ontario. So, and I think that the way the Fairfield and the Hampton is done, it won't be that long before they'll have this, we'll recoup our money on this project. So good job, Roger. Thank you.
Roger? Yeah, I was just going to compliment Roger on staying with this. It's been troublesome at times, and you've done a good job. So Kevin has a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Cheryl?
Council members Hannah? Grunmeyer? Bash? Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman? Mayor Newton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, that will conclude our public hearing portion, and we'll move into item 7A, discussion action items, approval of an economic incentive agreement. City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and council members, you have had Roger's presentation regarding AB 562 report. And the purpose of that report is to make sure that we justify the benefits from having to offer economic incentive to developers to do projects here in the city of Norco. It also is required because of transparency purposes, and that's the 562 report. The next agenda item, which is the economic incentive agreement, basically provides the agreement between us and Sahel Investment Group, which is the company that is proposing to develop this hotel in the city. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to do economic incentive agreement, but unfortunately, the cost of doing these projects are so high that in order for them to be done, the banks require certain levels of cost for the project, as well as ability for the developer to stabilize their revenue or to stabilize their cash flows during the first few years of operation. In coming up with this incentive agreement, it wasn't something that they just threw at us and we accepted the proposal. It involved a great amount of time of negotiation and trying to understand the developers' needs for financial assistance and what it would take for the banks to approve the loans that they need to approve the project. So the project cost, given the cost for development impact fees, as well as the cost for them to purchase the land, it was so high that when we started this process, the bank was requiring them to only pay $350,000 towards their development impact fee. Through a process of give and take over a period of time, they were able to get to the point where the developer was willing to pay up to $750,000 for impact fees. And that is how we got to the point of providing them credit for $446,000. This, again, started off with them requesting $850,000 in fee reduction. And as far as the the TOT sharing, the 50% that is required to be shared over a 6-year period. Again, this is required to allow them to have acceptable cash flows during that first 6 years of operation. And we believe, given what the benefits are to the city, that that is an acceptable amount of incentive to provide to them to do this project. Typically, a lot of these projects are done in other cities, and the typical period of time for this incentive, as far as TOT sharing, is typically anywhere between 10 and 20 years. In this case, our incentive agreement is for six years, and as Roger pointed out, we hope that based on TOT tax revenue generation, that we should be able to accomplish that in a shorter amount of time. The other thing that is provided in this agreement is that they are required to complete this project within 18 months of this agreement being approved. So we hope that they can get up to speed and do the project. Clearly, this is a win-win for the city as well as for the developers. With that, I will conclude my report and answer any questions that you might have.
Berwin, any questions for Andy?
Yeah, you said that if we approve this, they have 10 months to finish the construction on it?
18 months.
How many?
18.
18. Now they already got their, I know they were having trouble with their grading engineer and all that. Have they already got the grading and?
Their grading plans have been completed. Of course, their engineering drawings as far as for the buildings have been completed and have been approved by the Planning Commission. So it's now up to them to go out and bid the project and come in and take out their permits so that they can begin construction.
Okay, thank you.
Robin?
Andy, the only question I had is in the reduction of development fees, are we at least covering our cost of making the project go through with our staff and all that?
In addition to the impact fees, they will be paying all operating costs of staff, plan check and inspection fees. So all those costs will be 100% covered. Okay. This is a development impact fee that is above and beyond those costs.
Okay, thank you.
Ted? Kevin? Andy, I have, and it may be a Steve question. So they've gone through planning. They have all the conditions of approval?
Yes.
And are any of those we're still working out, like engineering, street improvement plans?
The street improvement plans and the grading plans have all been completed.
Okay. So I always like your answer to the question I'm going to ask you. Within all of this, how did we negotiate from a position of strength?
Well, clearly, I think the developer wants to do the project here in Norco, and because the market is right for them. However, there are, as I stated earlier on, there are cost limits to what they can pay in order to make the project pencil out economically. So clearly, Norco is an attractive market, and I think we use that to negotiate effectively to the benefit of the city.
One of the obstacles we have is that we have the TUMP fees, where if you go to San Bernardino County, you don't have that impact, and that being almost $250,000, that we have to overcome that hurdle also, which makes it a little more difficult. So, I mean, I think you did a great job with this, Andy, and once again, Roger did, and all the staff. So, Cheryl, are there any cards?
Yes, Mayor, I have 2 cards. Jeff Cahan.
Good evening again, Jeff. No.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Just to be clear, I'm here as a resident. Actually, I think Robin looked at my notes because she said almost exactly what I was going to say. There are people who look at this agreement and they're saying, you're giving away $140,000 a year. What are you thinking? That's not the way to look at it. Because as she said, we can either take 140 or we can take nothing and leave the vacant lot. And after the agreement has been fulfilled, then we get the full 280 ad infinitum. So yes, there's a little bit of indigestion when you look at those numbers. Those are some big numbers. But in the long run, it's going to be a great base for our TOT. We're diversifying with different hotels. Fairfield is way ahead of where our expectations were, occupancy-wise. And I give them credit because they built, and I know I'm not putting all the eggs in Silver Lake's basket, but they built before Silver Lake's opened on the expectation that it was going to be a success. And even though it's not even complete yet, it's still years away from final phase 2, everything. They gambled and they built and they're successful. So now Holiday Inn's coming in and they don't have to gamble. They see the success that's already happened here. So I appreciate that the agreement is only for 6 years instead of 10. And I would hope that as more and more hotels come in, we can be bargaining from a position of strength and find ways to offer less and less incentives, because a proven market is not a gamble like the first people that came in, Fairfield and now the Holiday Inn Express. So I'm fully in favor of this because I'm looking at the positive economic gain that we're going to gain. Too many people look at the short term and they don't see the long-term benefits. All the ancillary sales tax that's going to be generated from all the visitors coming from outside of town. And that's the beauty, is it's outside money coming into Norco and staying in Norco. So there's clearly a benefit. As Roger said, the public, the city is going to benefit far more than the developer. So I am 100% in approval of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Scott DeRosa.
You can hit him with your cane if you'd like.
Throw it.
Good evening, Scott.
Mayor and council members. I agree with Jeff, what he had to say. And I'm happy I don't have to do a sales pitch where the need of the hotel was going to be beneficial for the city, because you all seem to have that same impression as well. So I'll skip past all that stuff. And I really appreciated the presentation that Roger gave, as well as Andy, on this decision that you're going to be making. In EDAC, we have a vision for Norco, or an idea for Norco, or vision that is a destination place. And with that in mind, being a destination place, this hotel will definitely benefit our local businesses. It'll bring more economic improvement financially to from our boutiques to the restaurants, etc. And in a basic nutshell, because again, everything has been said, and I understand the city was in a other business venture of the similar kind, and it's proven to be a win-win for both the developer and the city, that this too will be a win-win, and I hope that you all approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
That concludes public comments.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any other further discussion? Yeah, Kevin.
Just to tag off, just the Fairfield, from Melissa Villapando, I understand the Fairfield is actually the #1 hotel in the nation of its size. That's how well it's doing. And then between the Navy meeting today, I just kind of wanted to see what the Navy does, which is nice, is they fill in the gaps. They don't always pay their TOT and stuff, but they fill in the gaps when there's not soccer going on, so I was pleased to hear that. Andy, the TUMP, I know I deal with that on the WRCOG, but TUMP is paying for, originally they were going to do the road, but now they're going to be doing the bridge. Now they're going to be doing the road, moving from the bridge onto Hamner, correct? That's the idea. That's where that funding is going to be flipped into?
I'm not sure how that relates to this, but let me say.
Well, the reason I'm saying is because just somebody mentioned TUMF. TUMF fees are very high.
Correct.
But at the same time, we're getting a lot of benefit from the
Oh,
TUMF.
absolutely. TUMF has funded a lot of projects here in Norco.
And we have a
More
huge
than
one.
we have contributed towards that program.
Right. So in a way, it's even with the high fees, it's still a win-win for all of us. And I just wanted to make that point.
Exactly.
That's all.
Yeah, it wasn't that I was going against the TUMP program, but it's a big hickey as a developer to, like in this case, $250,000. So it's a hill you have to overcome. Ted, any other comments? I'll go ahead and entertain a recommendation to authorize the city manager to execute the economic incentive agreement.
Council members Hannah. Grunmeyer. Bash. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman. Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll move to item 7B, partial closure of Norconian Drive. Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The overhead will be turning on in a second. But in regards to Norconian Drive, I want to bring this item before you because as the council is well aware, and I'm sure the community is too, because we've been talking about this for the last year or two, is regarding the conditions of our road system and the funding that's required to keep it, to repair it and keep it up. Norconian Drive was originally, is primarily a cut-through street between Norco and 5th Street. It's not a heavily trafficked road, but it's used mainly on the weekends for the various churches that are in that area. But the condition of that road has deteriorated such the case that we have to make a decision of either repair it right now or actually close it off because it's in such condition that it warrants a concern that we need to address. Back 2014, the city conducted a study where basically all the roads in Norco were rated for the pavement index. They're basically the condition. And this one was rated about an 18, which is already pretty low out of a scale of 100. It's only gotten worse in the last 2 years. There has been issues with flooding that's occurring, and we'll go through and I'll show you some of those pictures, but I just wanted to give you a brief introduction to this. There we go. So the area we're talking about specifically is I can't close off Norconian in total because primarily you have the Latter-day Saints Church that's here, and they need to be able to get entrance. That's their only entrance, which is off Norconian and 5th. We would basically block off this area that's just after our reservoir site, so we can get to our reservoir site every day, do there, and the Latter-day Saints Church is still accessible completely for that property. The other point is down here, which allows Beacon Hill and North, trying to remember the name of this church. Turning Point, I want to say North, Turning Point Church. Again, their entrance is all off of North, but Beacon Hill, their entrance is right here. So they'd have access to maintain that. This is, really the entire street is bad. This is especially bad in this area. Part of it's because there's ponding that occurs in this area, which only hurts the road even more over time. And I'll show you some of those pictures. So this is the current conditions that we have. It's heavily alligatored, if not just simply potholes filled with dirt. The road surface is very undrivable and very rough. It's almost basically been pulverized to wedge dirt at this point. This is what basically it looks like when we get a little bit of rain. It starts to flood, which basically it's already going half street, which makes it very dangerous for vehicles that are traveling northbound on Norconian. This gives you a larger view. So people are having to come out into the other side of the lane if you're not paying attention, or drivers are coming around the opposite corner. It can potentially lead to accidents. We've actually had people that are driving on the dirt when it's dry because it's actually better conditioned than the road on that shoulder there. So what I'm proposing, and the reason I'm proposing closing it rather than fixing it is a couple different reasons. One is that if I go back and basically it's a full reconstruct, it being conservative, it'd be about $500,000 just on this one road to repair it, because we'd have to tear it all out and make it new. It's not something we can do a grind and overlay or slurry seal, so it's a full reconstruct. But we have also other improvements that need to be done on that road that we aren't ready to do yet. One of those projects which is related to the water, is we need a storm drain system through there to control that water. We have a mechanism where we could probably get those funds through flood control. We have not asked for those funds yet, but as long as we go in and describe our project and the issues, and we certainly have the evidence indicating we're getting water issues that aren't being met as far as storm drain and flood control, that they would probably fund the project. We haven't asked for that yet. We're going to do that in this next fiscal year. Then when they ask for funding projects, our current list of projects have already been allocated and we're working on for this year. This is not in those, so we do need to wait another year to ask for funding to see if they provide that. But we do need a storm drain system in this specific in the area to take that water away from this project site. The other issue is related to our recycled water system. That system has been under development for the last 5 to 10 years. Our current pipeline is located on 5th Street. That's our main infrastructure going across the city, east to west. One of the motivations and one of our current funded projects by flood control, at least 50% of it, is additional recycled water pipeline to take it in different areas in the city. One of the goals was to take the pipeline up to through Norconian, from our connection at 5th Street through Norconian, up through the residential properties and get to the community center. So we can have water not only available potentially to the school in that area, the community center, but also with the bigger pictures that would be then taken down Hamner to Silver Lakes, provide them a water source. So there's that issue of building that pipeline. Part of that issue, what we're trying to figure out right now, is whether or not we're going to honestly move forward with the recycled water system, because the economics are very tough for it to pencil out without a major water user of that water. Because again, regardless whether it's recycled water, potable water, we have to make sure we're charging for all our costs related to that source. And when we pencil it out, having very few customers on that, right now the city only has is the only customer on that existing line. We're using non-potable water we have from a well that's located at our site on Bluff Street. So we are using the system. However, when you only have a few customers, the price of using that water is very high. And it's tough to justify our business community to get on this system if I can't show a price that is economically favorable to them. So that is part of the process we're trying to figure out now over the next years, is determining whether or not it is something I could advise to the city council to move forward with as a project, or finding an alternate mechanism to use that water, i.e. Selling it to another person, another agency that might be able to use it, or storing it in the Chino Basin, for example, and using it for recharge, and eventually selling it to another person up there as water rights. Because right now I could provide the water demand that we currently have using the non-potable water we have. What we're trying to secure is long-term customers, and we're in those talks right now as finding out Silver Lake's long-term plans, because they currently have the rights and abilities in their contract to have and operate the wells they currently have on site to meet their water demands. So, and those wells are in varying degrees of use and need of repair. So part of that is trying to determine for them, are they going to continue to drill or use existing wells or new wells in that site, because they have obviously the riverbed next to them, but they are subject to fouling quite a bit. So they have some long-term issues they have to determine. So before we move forward on spending 50% of that cost to build that pipeline, which is probably at this point, I think to get it to the school, to get it to the community center was about $1.5 million, and we have to pay for half of that. To get it to Silver Lakes is probably going to be another $800,000, maybe, depending on what we do. We are already planning for infrastructure that's going to be in the bridge, just in case. They're going to put that recycled water line along with the potable line in that bridge for us. So that takes care of some of that, but we do pay for that, that they're going to put in that bridge. So there's several physical CIP things that I need to resolve and because of sheer economics, I want to make sure we make right decisions rather than rush in, fix the road, which there are other roads I believe are much higher priority that have a lot greater use than this one. That the solution right now, in my opinion, is to close the area that we designated so that we eliminate the potential hazards, and this is the potential hazardous area. The other areas are uneven roads, and there's some potholes. We can do some temporary measures for as long as we need to until we come to a final decision on this issue. We do also have other half street improvements that are still obligations from Turning Point Church that need to be done. They actually have half street improvements that are supposed to be done along their boundary line all the way down north up along Norconian to improve that half road. So that's some of the repair that we can rely on, maybe potentially funding that project when we do move forward. But currently right now, we're still not sure when or how Turning Point will move forward with those repairs. But that is something we are talking with them about and working on. There's also potential if that other property that came through last year gets developed that's below our reservoir in any way, shape, or form, there's a new sewer line that would go in to serve them. Potential water line would have them improved to take it down Norconian. And if the property to the east, if it ever develops, same thing. They would need infrastructure. So we're just trying to make sure if we have folks that may do projects, I don't want to jump in and do it. Just again, when they might be conditioned to do it, as we talked about with the hotel earlier. So I think we need a good 2 to 3 years of time frame before we jump in there and spend $500,000 repairing a road where others may do a lot of those improvements for us. And recognizing that, I would recommend this to give me the time to flush out all those issues to find out whether or not any of those are going to happen, if we just need to move forward with repairing that road. We may end up just repairing the portion of the road that goes to just the Latter-day Saints Church and repairing that as a half measure. But I'm not in favor of that right now. I just want to come up with ideas that I can bring before you and give you all the potential impacts of it. And this is where I'm at now in this road. I think the best thing to do for us is to go ahead and cordon it off. And what I'm talking about doing is in this lower corner, the north portion, this is basically where Beacon Hill is. We're going to put I apologize, this way. We're going to put a barricade system here. We already have costs for everything, for all the signage, barricades, etc. It's going to be high, so clearly people will see it. It's going to be delineated. It's going to have flashing beacons on it. It'll be yellow in color, so again, it's visible. We'll have signs beforehand indicating there's no outlet. They'll clearly see this. You can see this from the road clearly, so it's not. I don't need to put any more signs in here. The other side, it's a longer stretch, so we're certainly going to have advanced notice. People let them know there's no outlet. These signs will be on both sides of the road, so they'll see them no matter how they come in. It'll say road closed in 1,000 feet. It'll make sure they get advance warning here because we're going to close it off in this area, and that's a hump area where you're just coming over that rise, and if people are going too fast, again, that's why all these advance warnings, we want them to warn about it, but this will be high in nature, so you'll see it. Even though you're coming up the hill, it's going to be that high. So they clearly know where it's going to be. There will be gaps in there small enough for people who do use it, even though it's not a designated horse trail. They go through that area, they can get through it. But it won't be a solid wall. And there will be, basically what we're using as the base is the water barricades. So they have some give when you hit them versus K-rail. Because K-rail is a little bit cheaper. But I also concerns, again, if something happens, I wanted something to have a little bit of forgiveness. There'll still be an accident, and they'll still have plenty of damage, but it's a little bit forgiving when they hit the water-filled barricades. So that's what we've prepared for, and we would likely, if the council approved it, we would have all this in place no later than Monday. We might even have it in place tomorrow. It just depends if the vendor can deliver all the materials that they've quoted for us. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chad. Chief, do you have any comments on, and the same for Eric, on life safety issues with closing this?
So we've talked about it, and ideally we'd like to see the road repaired, but that's not an option right now. It doesn't make sense. And given the current condition, it presents more of a public safety hazard than it does if it stays open. It's not a primary response route for us. The fire stations that surround it are either going down 5th or they're going down Norco Drive. Very few, if any, trips across Norconian because of the condition of the road surface. It's horrible. You saw the photos. We don't use it. I like the idea of the water barricades, so if and when the day came that we needed to move those barricades, we could. We could drain them and move them and open it for emergency operations and put them back when we're done. That's essentially my 2 cents. I mean, you have the Corridon station that's coming up 5th Street from Corridon and 5th. We have engine 47 coming from 6th and Hillside that's coming straight down Norco Drive, or they're going to cut across over to 5th and come down 5th. And then we have the Eastvale engine on Hamner that's doing the same thing. So just not a route that we use with any frequency. So I don't object to the closure at all.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Lieutenant?
I couldn't word it any better than the battalion chief. Ultimately, we understand that there's a concern for the basically motorists driving on that roadway based on the conditions. So what we would do is when the closure takes place, we would just make sure that deputies were aware and they could still access the church if need be on either side. But for cut through, they would have to find an alternative route, and that would just be a training issue, an informational issue that we provide them.
Thank you. Berwin, any questions on staff, for staff?
No, I don't have any question. I took that, I guess you'd call it tour with that gentleman from the church about 4 or 5 months ago when it was raining and muddy and everything, and I see the problem over there, and I definitely agree with you. I think for safety reason it needs to be closed until we get the money to repair it. But there were some right-of-way issues on that too, wasn't there, Steve, on right there by that church, right-of-way on that street?
There's not a right-of-way issue as far as we have the right-of-way in that whole section. We own it.
Maybe there was an encroachment issue, but that's another deal. So
yeah.
Anyway, I'm in favor of closing it.
Robin?
I think what Councilman Hanna was talking about, the easements, I think there's a gas easement along that back of that property by the church for Turning Point.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, it was there when we were up there. I guess my question is back to Eric. It's one of those things. It's going to be a motorcycles, an off-roader's delight to go through there, and other than training the guys and just FYI to patrol, that's about it, right?
Yes, this would be just something that we'd advise them on, and obviously they're all pretty familiar with that area. They understand, I believe they understand the challenges of accessing that road, but certainly that would be information that we'd provide them.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin?
I was asked by a resident, what would it cost to repair the road, just to go in and repair it?
Our conservative estimate is about $500,000.
And that includes the storm drains and everything?
No, that's just the street.
And so basically you'd then tear up the street to put in the storm drains?
Storm drain, or the recycle water line, or the future water line, or the sewer line, depending on what development occurs in there, yeah. And I know how that kind of criticism is justified if we end up tearing something up after we just put it in. And I'm trying to avoid that. But
it's the Norco way.
Sorry, I'm trying to change that.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I would like to just clarify for Eric's benefit and acknowledge that because we've already thought about it, when you create these closure areas, it can be, and it at some point will probably be some place where kids try to congregate and do what they do. You may get calls and people complaining about it, and then there's an access issue of the police getting there in that area where that is. If there's full barricades, how do they do that? So I'm acknowledging up front that might be a headache that Eric would have to deal with in trying to mitigate those issues and those complaints. But I don't have a solution for it.
We have our bicycle patrol.
That would be a bumpy ride.
You asked for a solution, and I offered one. Cheryl, are there any cards?
Yes, Mayor, I have 2 cards on this item. Scott DeRosa.
Good evening again. Scott. Good evening again, Mayor and council members. Okay, so I can appreciate, well, first let me say thank you for the work that's been done for fixing potholes and everything throughout the city. I know that infrastructure funds are hard to come by, to say the least, and so it's been appreciated because I drive through this area as a realtor, and I notice the difference. With regards to Norconian Drive, I've heard a lot about the church presence or church people being impacted and so forth. I would hope, or I don't know if you've done this, but has there been a traffic study done for 6th and Hamner at that intersection? Because I will tell you that the majority, or a lot of parents, I should say, that have kids in the middle school and the high school that have kids in Highland Elementary use that shortcut all the time. I'm one of them. And I know a lot of other parents that use that too. So we avoid 6th Street because it's so congested in the morning and in the evening, but especially in the morning, trying to get through all those signals so you can get up to Highland Elementary. So it definitely is a huge impact on us when it comes to time frames of getting kids to school and getting to our jobs, et cetera. So I would hate to see it closed, but also can appreciate the being aware of the cost of that's involved in it, and that if there's speculation of developers going to develop it later on, saving the city that money. But I would hope there'd just be maybe some kind of alternative, especially when I think that there would be more congestion at the 6th and Hamner intersection as parents are trying to get across to Highland Elementary after dropping off kids at the middle school and high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Bonnie Slager.
Hi.
Hi, Bonnie.
I think Chad mentioned the horse trail will still be, even though there isn't much of a horse trail from the Mormon church down towards Norco Drive, the horse trail still will be open during this time, so we can still ride through there. And then, since this has been on our top 10s trails list for a really long time, I hope as you do eventually redo the street that a horse trail will be included, since we really need one through there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
That concludes comments.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any further discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Council members Hannah. Grunmeyer. Bash. Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman. Mayor Newton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, coming to the end. Any city council, city manager, staff communications? Kevin. Ted.
Yeah, I do have something. I think it's one of the things to comment that this fall season, Norco High starts, this will be their 50th year. So 1967 it opened. I was there. And this is their football season begins here soon. So go on Cougars. Also, we didn't talk about it earlier. One of the other big things coming up, Bonnie reminded me with the fair, is the Norco Mounted Posse PRCA Rodeo is August 18th, 19th, and 20th. It's been over 33 years, I think, so another good event in town. Mr. Mayor, in closing, if I can, we lost two very generous and longtime people here in town that made a difference. Walter Green passed away up in Montana. For those who didn't know Walter, he was a big supporter of Horse Week Rodeo, the Norco Posse Rodeo, along with the fair, and he will surely be missed, as he also helped out at the auction buying animals all the time. But, and I know, Kevin, you have that. So tonight, I'd like to close our meeting in memory of Walter Green.
Thank you, Ted. We'll get to that point. Robin. Berwin. Lieutenant.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor. Thank you. Yes, I would like to thank Councilmember Hannah for reminding me. The Riverside Sheriff's Department is having another National Night Out. If you recall, last year we had one in Norco, a very successful event. There were a number of communities and cities involved in that process. National Night Out tours through the jurisdiction of the Rupa Valley Station, which also encompasses the other contract cities. This year, on Tuesday, August 8th, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., National Night Out will be held in the city of Rupa Valley. It'll be located in the Fitness 9 parking lot at the Vernola Marketplace. That's 6429 Pat's Ranch Road. The Sheriff's Department will have our bomb squad, our K-9 team, our SWAT team. There'll be child fingerprinting, our Explorer program. There'll be carnival games, crafts. Fire Department is also our partner with that, so they will be there. And we'll also have our Norco citizens on patrol there as well. It's a great night, and we hope to see you there. Thank you.
What's the date again?
Tuesday, August 8th, from 6 to 8 p.m.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Chief? Gina? Hank? You're head of Parks and Recreation for 2 weeks. Okay. Tell us everything's under control. Perfect. Steve? Chad? Roger? Cheryl? Andy?
No.
Okay. So the last couple of weeks haven't been good for any of us. After our last council meeting that we closed in memory of Dane, and then this last week losing Walter Green, but we also lost a real big supporter of our community in Larry Palmer. So I'd like to close the meeting in all of their honor again. But Kevin, would you like to say, you and I and Larry were all pretty close, so if you'd like to say a few comments about Larry Palmer?
Yeah, he was my police partner buddy. I used to have lunch with him all the time and see him over there. He was a poet. He was a master salesman. He sold everything from yachts to, you name it, to advertising space. He was an equestrian. He was a pilot. He was a Marine. One of the funny stories is that he was proud his whole life of being a Marine, except when he was at basic training. He went with a friend of his, and he said, yeah, he complained the whole time he was there, and then once he was out, you would have thought he was the greatest Marine that ever lived. But he was a really good guy. And it was kind of sad because he got cancer, and he was clear, and then it came back. And so he moved his wife into Irvine in that area, and some of the comments that were said about him at his memorial were he just had a lot of friends, and a lot of Norconians attended, which I was really proud of because it's quite a drive. And I personally am going to really miss him. He was a really great guy. So that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we may have a moment of silence. And we're adjourned. Thank you all.